The Rise of Quame, A Journey from Africa to America. Chapter 1. Born under the baobab, Kwame was born on a sweltering afternoon beneath the wide, sweeping branches of a towering baobab tree, in a small village in Ghana. His mother, Nya, had labored through the night, and when the first cry of the infant cut through the warm, golden air, the village knew that another child of Africa had arrived. The villagers gathered, their faces glowing with pride as they welcomed this new life into their community. The griot, the village storyteller, wove Kwame's birth into his ancient tales, proclaiming that this boy would one day be known far beyond the village. He would carry Africa's spirit with him across the world. Kwame grew up with the rhythm of the drums in his ears and the scent of the African earth in his soul. His father, Juma, was a proud man who worked the fields and always had a smile for his son. Kwame, he would say with a grin, the world is big, but your heart must be bigger. Nia was softer, a gentle woman with laughter like the river's current, always flowing, sometimes calm, sometimes fast. She would sing to Kwame at night, old songs passed down through generations, songs of courage and love, of warriors and survivors. Kwame's favorite was one about the lion who couldn't roar until he found his heart. At 6 years old, Kwame already ran faster than most of the older boys, his legs long and lean like the antelope that roamed the plains. He had a fire in his belly, a love for competition, and a mischievous smile that often got him into trouble. His village was his playground, and every hill, tree, and river was a challenge waiting to be conquered. But, as with all children, Kwame's world was destined to grow larger than the horizons he knew. His parents spoke in whispers at night, talking of a new land, a place called America, where opportunity awaited those brave enough to leave everything behind. One night, while Kwame lay listening to the crickets outside his window, he overheard his father speaking. "We will go soon," Juma said. "It's not safe here anymore." Kwame didn't understand what danger could lurk in the village he loved so much. He didn't understand why they had to leave behind the warm sun, the songs, and the laughter. But he trusted his parents, even though a knot of fear began to grow in his small chest. Chapter 2. Crossing the ocean. The day came when Kwame's family packed what little they had into worn suitcases. They said tearful goodbyes to their friends and family. The griot whispered words of protection over Kwame as they left the village, blessing him for his journey ahead. Their ship was not grand, it was old and creaked with every wave that hit its side, but to Kwame, it was like stepping into a world of adventure. The ocean stretched out before them, endless and mysterious. Kwame stood at the edge of the ship, his small hands gripping the railing as the wind whipped through his hair. America, he whispered to himself, trying to imagine what it would be like. He had heard tales of tall buildings, flashing lights, and streets paved with gold. But deep down, he wondered if anything could ever feel like home again. The journey across the ocean was long and tiring. Kwame's legs ached from standing, and his stomach turned from the constant rocking of the ship. But his father always kept his spirits high. "There's nothing in this world we can't overcome, my boy," Juma would say, clapping his hand on Kwame's shoulder. "Remember, a lion doesn't roar because he's the loudest. He roars because he's got something to say." Kwame didn't feel like a lion on the ship, though. He felt small, lost in a sea of faces he didn't recognize. But his mother's songs still lulled him to sleep every night, just as they had under the stars of Africa. When the ship finally docked in New York, Guam's eyes widened in awe. The city was like nothing he had ever seen. Buildings scraped the sky, people bustled in every direction, and the noise was like a constant hum in the air. "Welcome to America, son," Juma said, lifting Guam up onto his shoulders so he could see better. "This is where we'll build our new life." Chapter 3, America, the land of dreams and struggles. Life in America was not what they had expected. The streets weren't paved with gold, and opportunity wasn't waiting for them with open arms. Guam's family moved into a small, cramped apartment in Harlem. The walls were thin, the noise from the street was endless, and the stares they received from others were often filled with suspicion. Guam noticed that the people here looked at his skin differently. In Africa, he was just Guam. Here, he was the black boy, the outsider, the stranger. At school, children teased him for his accent, for his clothes, and for the color of his skin. But Guam didn't let their words weigh him down for long. He found solace in the one place where words didn't matter, or the basketball court. In Harlem, the streets were alive with the sound of bouncing basketballs, and Guam's natural athleticism made him a star. He could run, he could jump, and he could shoot. The game became his sanctuary. He remembered his father's words about the lion. On the court, Guam was the lion. He roared with every shot he made, every victory he claimed. But life off the court wasn't easy. His parents struggled to make ends meet, taking jobs in factories and cleaning offices. They worked long hours, and Guam often found himself alone, navigating the complexities of a world that wasn't always kind to people like him. One day, when Guam was walking home from school, he saw a group of police officers harassing a group of teenagers. He didn't understand why, but something in his gut told him that it wasn't fair. The teenagers weren't doing anything wrong, but their skin was the same color as Guam's. He felt the same knot of fear that he had felt when his family left Africa. That night, as his mother sang softly to him, Guam asked, "Why do they treat us like this, Mama?" Nia sighed and stroked his hair. "Because they don't see us for who we are, Guam. They see only what they fear. But we must keep going. We must be strong. You must be strong." Chapter 4, A Rising Star. As Guam grew older, his skills on the basketball court caught the attention of coaches and scouts. He was fast, agile, and determined. But more than that, he had a fire that couldn't be extinguished. He played like every game was his last, like every shot was a roar from the depths of his soul. He earned a scholarship to a prestigious high school, where his talent was undeniable. But even as he rose in the ranks of the basketball world, he faced constant reminders of the prejudice that followed him. Coaches doubted him, teammates resented him, and the media often focused more on his background than his skill. Yet Guam refused to back down. He remembered the words of the griot from his village, the songs his mother sang, and the pride in his father's eyes. He wasn't just playing for himself, he was playing for every boy who had ever been told he didn't belong, for every African who had crossed the ocean in search of a better life. His college years were filled with challenges both on and off the court. He became an outspoken advocate for social justice, joining protests against police brutality and speaking out against the inequality he witnessed daily. His voice was strong, and his message was clear: Black lives mattered, and he would fight for his community just as fiercely as he fought for victory on the court. Chapter 5, College Glory, Real-World Struggles. Quam's transition to college was a whirlwind of excitement, opportunity, and harsh reality. He was recruited by one of the top basketball programs in the country, and for the first time in his life, he tasted the freedom that came with being seen as a star. But freedom in America came at a price. On campus, Quam was a sensation. Reporters loved his story, a boy from Africa, overcoming obstacles, making it big in the world of American sports. He was the poster child for the so-called American dream. Yet, even as the crowd cheered his name, Quam felt a subtle shift in how people treated him. The same classmates who took pictures with him in the gym avoided him in the hallways. Some professors looked at him as if he were just a basketball player, not a student with a mind hungry to learn. There was a day during his sophomore year, after a big win against their rival school, that Quam overheard two boys whispering in the locker room. "Yeah, he's great on the court, but you think he's got the brains to finish college?" Quam clenched his fists. He wasn't going to let their words define him. He knew he was more than an athlete. He attended every class, stayed late in the library, and studied with determination. He excelled not just in basketball but in his academics, too. His major in African American Studies was a choice close to his heart. He wanted to understand his place in this new world, to learn about the history that had brought his people to where they were today. Still, the weight of systemic racism pressed down on him. He knew that no matter how well he played or how smart he was, the world would always try to reduce him to a single thing: his race. He saw it when he walked through the campus at night, when security would follow him, questioning his presence. He saw it in the headlines that focused on his African roots more than his accomplishments as an athlete. He even saw it in the eyes of his peers, who praised him on the court but wouldn't invite him to their parties. One night, Quam wrote a poem in his notebook, an outlet for the frustration he felt but didn't always know how to express. "I run fast, but the shadow follows, through streets of gold and broken dreams. The land of the free, but where's my freedom? They cheer my name, but they don't see me." Chapter 6, Protest and Power. Quam's junior year of college brought more than basketball championships. It brought a wave of social movements that rocked the country. News of police shootings, protests against racial injustice, and cries for change filled every TV screen, social media feed, and conversation on campus. Quam could feel the tension in the air, a storm brewing that couldn't be ignored. He wasn't just an athlete anymore. He was a young black man in America, and the struggles of his community could not be separated from his success on the court. As protests against police brutality grew louder, so did Quam's desire to speak out. He couldn't remain silent. He joined student-led protests, marched through the streets, and even used his growing platform to call attention to the inequality he witnessed daily. There was a particularly powerful moment that would be remembered by those who were there. It was during a championship game, with thousands of people watching in the stadium and millions more at home. As the national anthem played, Quam knelt. The arena went silent, save for a few gasps. He didn't kneel out of disrespect. He knelt because he was tired of seeing his people suffer, tired of seeing young black men like himself treated as less than human. It was his way of speaking without words. The backlash was swift. The media exploded with opinions, some supporting Kwam's bold stance, others vilifying him. His coach pulled him aside after the game, his face tight with frustration. "You need to focus on basketball, Kwame. You're here to play, not to make political statements." Kwame's jaw clenched. "Basketball isn't the only thing I am," he replied. "If I don't use my voice now, when will I?" The support from his teammates was mixed, but Kwame didn't care. He knew in his heart that what he was doing was right. The kneeling became a national conversation, with Kwame's name at the center. He received messages of encouragement from activists, athletes, and even celebrities, but he also received hate mail, threats, and scorn from those who saw his protest as unpatriotic. Still, Kwame stood firm. He wasn't kneeling just for himself. He was kneeling for all those who couldn't, for those who had lost their lives at the hands of a system that wasn't built for them. Chapter 7, A Leap into the Professional World. By the time Kwame graduated, he was one of the top prospects for the NBA draft. The years of hard work, both on and off the court, were finally paying off. Kwame was drafted by a team on the West Coast, and the world welcomed him as the next big thing in basketball. But Kwame's focus wasn't just on his professional career. He knew he had a responsibility to continue the fight for social justice. Life in the NBA brought its own set of challenges. The media spotlight was relentless, and every move he made, both on the court and in his activism, was scrutinized. Some sponsors pulled away from him, citing his political views as too controversial. But for every door that closed, another opened. Kwame found allies in other athletes, musicians, and public figures who shared his vision for a more just and equal society. Kwame's first few seasons were remarkable. He quickly established himself as a star, breaking records and leading his team to the playoffs. Yet, even as his fame grew, so did the weight of his responsibilities. He started community programs in underprivileged neighborhoods, advocating for educational opportunities and equality in sports. His speeches became a fixture in the world of activism, and his message was clear: sports were not just a distraction from the world's problems, so they were a platform to address them. Off the court, Kwame was still that boy from Ghana, with a deep sense of purpose instilled in him by his parents. He used his fame and fortune to support causes that mattered, building schools back in his home village, advocating for clean water initiatives across Africa, and partnering with organizations that fought for police reform in the US. But even heroes have their moments of doubt. There were nights when Kwame lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if his efforts made any real difference. The system seemed so big, so impenetrable. Could one man, even with a platform as large as his, truly make an impact? Chapter 8, Love and Loss. Amidst the chaos of fame and activism, Kwame found love in an unexpected place. Her name was Alia, a journalist who had interviewed him after a particularly intense game. She was intelligent, passionate, and shared his drive for change. Their connection was immediate, and soon they became a team both in public and private life. Alia supported Kwame's activism, often accompanying him to protests and rallies, her own voice amplifying his. Their relationship was one of joy, laughter, and mutual understanding. Guam often joked that Alia's sharp wit kept him on his toes. But life wasn't always easy for them. The media pried into their personal lives, often twisting their words and actions. There were struggles or arguments about the balance between Guam's career and his activism, about the constant pressures of being in the public eye. And then came the hardest blow of all, the death of Guam's father, Juma. Back in Ghana, Juma had fallen ill, and the news hit Guam like a punch to the gut. His father had been his rock, his guiding light, the man who had told him he could be anything, do anything. Guam flew back to Ghana, but it was too late. Juma was gone. At the funeral, standing beneath the same baobab tree where he had been born, Guam felt the weight of his loss more acutely than ever before. His father's death reminded him of the fragility of life, the importance of family, and the legacy he was now responsible for carrying on. Chapter 9, Legacy. As Guam entered the later stages of his career, he began to think more about his legacy. He had accomplished so much on the court, as an activist, and as a philanthropist. But he knew that his work was far from over. Retiring from basketball was a bittersweet moment. He had spent years dedicating his life to the game, but now he wanted to focus entirely on the causes he cared about. He started his own foundation, dedicated to providing scholarships for young black athletes and funding community programs that supported at-risk youth. Guam's voice, once loud on the basketball court, now echoed through boardrooms, conferences, and government meetings. He lobbied for systemic change, working with leaders across the world to combat racial inequality, not just in sports, but in all areas of society. His speeches were filled with the same passion he had brought to the game, but now his words were the points that mattered most. In his final years, Guam found peace in the knowledge that he had done everything he could to make the world a better place. He looked back on his life here, his journey from Africa to America, the struggles, the triumphs, the losses, and knew that, like the lion in his mother's song, he had found his roar. Epilogue. Quamsubari passed away quietly in his sleep at the age of 85, surrounded by his family. His story, however, did not end with his death. It lived on in the schools he had built, in the young men and women he had inspired, and in the movements for justice that he had helped to shape. And somewhere in the heart of Ghana, beneath a towering baobab tree, a young boy would sit and listen to the griot tell the tale of the lion who found his roar.